Welcome to our deep dive into, the world of single moms trying to balance motherhood with their faith. It can be a lot.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be looking at a blog post titled SOS, Christian Single Mom Alone and Tired. How can faith help you thrive?
Right.
Which I think is something that a lot of people can relate to.
Definitely.
So,
Yeah.
I was just thinking how this blog post starts off, by just acknowledging how hard it can be to be a single mom.
Right. And I think that's really important because there's often this pressure to
Right.
kind of put on a brave face and pretend like everything's
Yeah,
okay.
you got to be the strong single mother.
Exactly. And this blog post really pushes back against that.
Yeah.
It says, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to admit that you're struggling.
And it also points out that being a single parent is way more common than it used to be.
Oh, absolutely. The
Mhm.
numbers have skyrocketed since the 1970s.
Yeah.
And something like 85% of single-parent families are headed by women.
Yeah, so just knowing that you're not alone in this, right?
Can be a huge source of comfort.
Absolutely, and that's where faith can really come in.
Right.
This blog post talks about how God's presence can be a source of strength even when you feel like you're at your weakest point.
Yeah, I love that. And it even highlights a specific verse from Romans.
Yes, Romans 8:28.
Do you remember it off the top of your head?
Let's see. And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose.
Yeah, that's a powerful one.
It really is.
And it's something that I've personally found a lot of comfort in over the years.
Mhm.
Because, life as a single mom, it throws you a lot of curveballs.
Definitely.
But that verse, it reminds you that even when things are tough, God can still use those experiences
Right.
for good.
It's not about pretending that the hard things aren't happening. It's about trusting that God can work through them.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it can be easy to get so caught up in the day-to-day struggles that you lose sight of that bigger picture. Absolutely, you can start to feel like you're just surviving
Yeah.
instead of actually thriving.
But this blog post, it reminds you that thriving is possible,
Yeah.
even in the midst of those challenges.
And it talks about how cultivating joy and gratitude can be a big part of that.
Oh, I love that because those are things that we can actually choose to do.
Right, it's not always easy, but it's a choice.
And, it mentions a verse from 1 Thessalonians about rejoicing, always praying continually and giving thanks in all circumstances.
Yes, 1 Thessalonians 5:16-18.
Which I think can sound a little bit overwhelming when you're in the thick of things.
I know what you mean. Like, how am I supposed to rejoice when I'm feeling completely exhausted and overwhelmed?
Yeah, exactly. But I love that this blog post doesn't just tell us to be joyful, it actually gives us some practical tips for how to cultivate that joy.
Right, it gets down to the nitty-gritty.
Yeah. So what are some of those tips?
Well, one of the first things it talks about is self-care.
Oh, that's so important.
It is. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy or time-consuming.
Right.
Even just a few minutes each day to do something you enjoy.
Like a hot bath or reading a book.
Exactly, or going for a walk or listening to your favorite
Or
music.
anything that just helps you to feel a little more refreshed and recharged.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's easy to forget about yourself when you're constantly taking care of everyone else.
Absolutely. You put everyone else's needs first, and your own needs end up at the bottom of the list,
And then you end up feeling resentful and burned out.
which helps no one.
Not at all. So self-care is definitely key.
Definitely. And another tip the blog post gives is to spend quality time with your kids,
Oh, yeah.
even if it's just for a few minutes each day.
Right. It's not about the quantity of time. It's about the quality.
Exactly. Putting away your phone, turning off the TV, and just being present with them.
Playing a game, reading a book, cuddling up on the couch.
Those little moments can really make a big difference.
And they create memories that you'll cherish for years to come.
And the last tip the blog post mentions is to build supportive friendships.
Oh, yeah. Having a good support system is so crucial.
It really is. It's about having people in your life who understand what you're going through.
People who can offer a listening ear, a shoulder to cry on, or even just a fun night out.
Right, because sometimes you just need to laugh and let loose.
And remember that you're not alone in this.
Exactly.
And it's so interesting how this blog post takes these big concepts like God's purpose and joy and gratitude,
Right.
and then breaks them down into these really practical, doable steps.
It makes it feel less overwhelming.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I can actually do this.
Instead of feeling like, oh, that's a nice idea, but it's not realistic for my life.
Yeah, and it reminds us that sometimes those steps can be surprisingly simple.
Right.
It's not always about grand gestures.
It's not always about grand gestures.
It's about those small, everyday choices that can make a big difference over time.
Yeah, and speaking of those everyday choices, one of the things that stood out to me in this blog post was
Yeah.
It's a gentle challenge to the image of the strong single mother.
Oh, yes, that's such an important point. Like we were talking about earlier, there's this pressure to have it all together and never show any weakness.
Right, and it can be really isolating because you feel like you can't ask for help.
Exactly. And I think that's something that a lot of single moms struggle with.
Absolutely. And, this reminds me of a time when I was really struggling.
Oh, yeah.
And I was trying so hard to be that strong single mother,
hmm
but it was actually preventing me from getting the help I needed.
I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Oh, I'm sure they can. It's
Yeah.
like you feel like you have to do it all on your own.
And it's almost like you're ashamed to admit that you need help.
Right, like it's a sign of weakness or failure.
But the blog post really challenges that.
It does.
It talks about how asking for help is actually an act of love.
Yes, both for yourself and for the people who care about you.
It's about letting them love you and support you.
And it's about acknowledging that you're not superhuman. You can't do everything on your own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it even mentions a verse from John 13:34 where Jesus tells his disciples to love one another. And the blog post suggests that sometimes loving ourselves means allowing others to love us.
Right, by accepting their help.
And this whole conversation reminds me of another point the blog post makes.
Yeah.
About finding strength in being organized and calm,
Oh, yes, I love that part.
which can be a lot easier said than done right.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah.
My life often feels like one big chaotic whirlwind.
But the blog post actually offers some really helpful tips on this.
Oh, good. I'm all ears.
It starts by reminding us of a verse from Isaiah 30:5, which says, "In repentance and rest is your salvation and quietness, and trust is your strength."
That's a beautiful verse.
It really is, and it's such a good reminder that even in the middle of chaos, we can find a source of strength within ourselves.
It's about finding that inner peace.
Yeah, and the blog post then goes on to give some practical suggestions for how to cultivate that sense of calm and organization in our daily lives.
I'm always up for practical tips.
So one thing it suggests is creating a routine.
Oh, that's a good one.
I know it sounds simple, but having set times for things like waking up, meals, homework, and bedtime can make a huge difference.
It creates a sense of structure and predictability.
Exactly. And it helps to reduce stress because you're not constantly trying to figure out what comes next.
And it can also be really helpful for kids to have that routine.
Yeah.
Makes them feel more secure.
Absolutely. And along with a routine, the blog post also suggests prioritizing your tasks.
Right. And instead of trying to tackle everything at once.
Focus on the most important things first.
And it even suggests making a to-do list each day and identifying the top 3 things that absolutely need to get done.
Oh, that's a great idea because it helps you to let go of the things that aren't essential.
At least for today.
And it prevents you from feeling overwhelmed by a never-ending list of tasks.
Another thing the blog post suggests that I found really helpful is
Yeah.
getting the kids involved in household responsibilities.
Oh, that's so important.
It is, and it doesn't have to be anything major,
Age-appropriate chores.
right? Like helping to set the table or tidy up their toys.
And it not only lightens your workload, but it also teaches them valuable life skills.
Exactly. And it creates a sense of teamwork.
Everyone contributes to making the household run smoothly.
And speaking of things that can make life run more smoothly, the blog post also emphasizes the importance of financial organization.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Financial stress can be a huge burden for single moms.
It can really impact your overall well-being.
Absolutely. And the blog post stresses the importance of creating a realistic budget and sticking to it.
And there's so many great resources available to help with that.
Right, like online tools, apps, and even workshops offered through local community organizations.
It's about taking control of your finances.
Yes, instead of letting your finances control you.
And I think sometimes we can feel like talking about money is taboo.
Right.
But it's so important to be open and honest about it.
Absolutely. And, here's a little extra tip that I've found
I
helpful.
love tips.
Try setting aside a small amount of money each month into a fun fund.
A fun fund? That sounds amazing.
Right? It doesn't have to be a lot, even $5 or $10.
Okay.
But having a little something set aside for a treat for yourself or a fun outing with the kids can be a real mood booster.
It's like a reminder that even amidst the responsibilities, you deserve to have a little fun.
Exactly. And speaking of things that are good for the soul, the blog post also talks about the importance of making time for self-care.
Right, which we touched on a bit earlier.
Yes, and I just want to reiterate how important it is. It's so easy to put everyone else's needs first when you're a single mom.
But it's crucial to remember that you can't pour from an empty cup.
So true. And self-care doesn't have to be complicated or expensive.
Right.
It could be as simple as reading a book, taking a long bath, or going for a walk in nature.
Or even just sitting in silence for a few minutes and taking some deep breaths.
Yes. And, for me, spending time in prayer and meditation has been a game changer.
Mm.
It helps me to connect with God, find peace amidst the chaos, and tap into a source of strength that's greater than myself.
It's like a reminder that you're not alone in this.
Exactly.
God is with you every step of the way.
And that brings us to another important topic that the blog post touches on.
Okay.
Community.
Yes, building a supportive community around yourself is so crucial for thriving as a single mom.
It really is. And the blog post emphasizes that there are many different forms that this support can take.
This reminds me of a study I read recently
Oh, yeah?
about the impact of social support on the well-being of single mothers.
Interesting. Tell me more about that.
Well, this study found that
Yeah.
single mothers who had strong social support networks reported lower levels of stress, depression, and anxiety compared to those who felt more isolated.
It makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
Parenting is hard enough as it is,
Yeah.
but when you're doing it solo, those challenges can feel magnified.
Yeah, it's like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders.
Exactly. And having a supportive community can really help to lighten that load.
Absolutely. And this blog post we've been discussing emphasizes that support can come from a variety of sources.
Right.
It could be from other single moms who understand your unique experiences.
Yeah, those shared experiences can be so validating.
Or it could be from trusted friends and family members.
Or from your church community.
Right. And, speaking of church, I've seen firsthand how faith communities can be a powerful source of support for single moms.
Me too.
I used to attend a church that had a fantastic program where they paired single moms with older couples who would provide mentorship, encouragement, and practical help.
That's amazing. What a great way to create a sense of belonging and support.
I thought so too. And I'm also a big believer in the power of single parent support groups. They provide a safe space for moms to connect with one another,
Right.
share their struggles, and offer encouragement and advice.
It's so important to have a place where you can be honest about the challenges without feeling judged or misunderstood.
Yeah. And those shared experiences can create a powerful sense of camaraderie and solidarity.
Absolutely. And, I think it's also important to acknowledge that the children of single moms are on this journey too,
Right.
and they have their own unique needs and perspectives.
And exactly, just like their moms, these kids benefit from having a supportive community around them.
It's about creating an environment where they feel loved, accepted, and supported.
Not just by their moms, but by extended family friends and their church community.
And sometimes the most meaningful support comes from the simplest gestures.
Yeah, like a neighbor offering to watch the kids for an hour.
Right.
So mom can have some downtime.
Or a friend bringing over a meal when mom's feeling overwhelmed.
Or a church member offering a ride to soccer practice.
Those acts of kindness can really make a world of difference.
They really can. It's about recognizing that we're all in this together.
Exactly.
And even small acts of kindness can have a ripple effect of positivity and support.
So true.
Ooh.
And, as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm struck by how much ground we've covered.
It's been a rich and insightful conversation, for sure.
We've talked about the challenges of single motherhood, the power of faith, the importance of practical strategies, and the vital role of community.
And I hope it's been encouraging and helpful for you, our listener.
I hope so, too.
If there's one thing I'd love for you to take away from this deep dive, it's this.
Yeah.
You are not alone. You are strong. You are capable, and you are loved.
Beautifully said. And remember, God sees you, He hears you, and He's walking with you every step of the way.
And as always, we encourage you to continue exploring this topic, to delve deeper into the resources we've discussed, and to reach out for support when you need it.
Yes, don't try to do this alone.
You are not meant to do this alone. There's a village waiting to embrace you and your children.
And with that, we'll leave you to ponder this question.
Okay.
What's one small step you can take this week to cultivate more joy, peace, or connection in your life?
That's a good one.
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep shining your light, Mama. You've got this.
We'll see you in part 2. So before the break, I was telling you about a time when, I was trying so hard to be that strong single mother. And it was actually preventing me from getting the help that I needed.
Yeah, I think it's easy to fall into that trap,
It is.
You feel like you have to do it all yourself.
Right. And it's like asking for help is somehow a sign of weakness.
Yeah. Or failure.
Exactly.
But this blog post really pushes back against that idea.
It does. It actually talks about how asking for help can be an act of love.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's about letting people into your life and letting them support you.
Like you're giving them a gift almost.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
allowing them to help.
And it's about recognizing that you don't have to do everything on your own.
We're not superhuman.
We are not.
And the blog post even connects this to a Bible verse.
Yes, John 13:34.
Where Jesus tells his disciples to love one another
Right. And it suggests that sometimes loving ourselves means allowing others to love us.
by accepting their help.
Exactly.
I love that.
And, this whole idea of letting go of control and allowing others to help, it actually ties into another point the blog post makes
Okay.
about the importance of finding strength in being organized and calm.
Wow, that's a tall order when you're a single parent.
Oh, tell me about it. My life often feels like one giant chaotic mess.
Right, but the blog post suggests that it's actually in those moments of chaos that we need to find that inner stillness even more.
It's easier said than done, for sure.
It is, but it reminds us of that verse from Isaiah
Isaiah 30:15.
that says, "In repentance and rest is your salvation, and quietness and trust is your strength."
That's a good one.
Yeah, and it's so powerful because it reminds us that even when everything around us feels crazy,
Right.
we can still find a source of strength within ourselves.
It's about finding that inner peace.
And the blog post actually gives some really practical suggestions
Okay, I'm always up for practical tips.
for how to cultivate that sense of calm and organization in our daily lives.
So what are some of the things it suggests?
Well, one of the first things it talks about is creating a routine.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that one before.
It sounds simple, but having set times for things like waking up, meals, homework, bedtime can really make a huge difference.
It creates a sense of structure and predictability.
Exactly. And it reduces stress because you're not constantly trying to figure out what comes next.
And it can be really helpful for kids, too.
Yeah, they thrive on routine.
They do. It makes them feel more secure.
Absolutely. And along with a routine, the blog post also suggests prioritizing your tasks.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Instead of trying to tackle everything at once,
Right.
focus on the most important things first.
It's about being strategic with your time and energy.
Exactly. And it even suggests making a to-do list each day and identifying the top 3 things that absolutely need to get done.
That's a good idea.
It helps you to let go of the things that aren't essential,
At least for today.
and it prevents you from feeling overwhelmed by that never-ending list of tasks.
Yeah, that can be so paralyzing.
It can. And another thing the blog post suggests that I've found really helpful is getting the kids involved
Oh, yeah.
in household responsibilities.
Giving them chores.
Yeah, age-appropriate chores, of course.
Right, like helping to set the table or tidy up their toys.
It not only lightens your workload, it also teaches them valuable life skills.
Exactly. And it creates a sense of teamwork.
Right. Everyone contributes to making the household run smoothly.
And, speaking of things that can make life run more smoothly, the blog post also really emphasizes the importance of financial organization.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Financial stress can be a huge burden for single moms.
Absolutely. It can really impact your overall well-being.
And the blog post talks about the importance of creating a realistic budget and sticking to it.
Which can be tough,
It can be, but there are so many great resources available now.
right? Like online tools, apps.
Even workshops offered through local community organizations.
Yeah, it's about taking control of your finances.
Yes, instead of letting your finances control you.
And I think sometimes we can feel like talking about money is taboo,
Right.
but it's so important to be open and honest about it.
Absolutely. And, I have a little extra tip.
Oh, I love tips.
Try setting aside a small amount of money each month
Okay.
into a fun fund.
A fun fund.
Yeah.
I love that.
Right. It doesn't have to be a lot, even $5 or $10.
Okay.
But having a little something set aside for a treat for yourself or a fun outing with the kids
Yeah.
can be a real mood booster.
It's like a reminder that even amidst all the responsibilities,
Right.
you deserve to have a little fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of things that are good for the soul,
Yeah.
the blog post also talks about the importance of making time for self-care.
Right. Which we touched on a bit earlier.
Yes, but I just want to emphasize it again.
It's so important.
It is. It's so easy to put everyone else's needs first when you're a single mom.
You're constantly giving, giving, giving.
But you can't pour from an empty cup.
That's so true.
And self-care doesn't have to be complicated or expensive.
Right.
It could be as simple as reading a book, taking a long bath, or going for a walk in nature.
Or just sitting in silence for a few minutes.
Yes, and taking some deep breaths.
Yeah, just disconnecting from the world for a little bit.
And, for me, spending time in prayer and meditation has been a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
It helps me to connect with God, find peace amidst the chaos.
Yeah.
And tap into a source of strength that's greater than myself.
It's a reminder that you're not alone in this.
Exactly. God is with you every step of the way.
And that actually leads us to another important topic that this blog post touches on.
Okay, what's that?
Community.
Community, yes.
Building a supportive community around yourself is so crucial.
It really is, and the blog post emphasizes that there are many different forms that this support can take.
And, this reminds me of a study I read recently about the impact of social support on the well-being of single mothers.
Interesting. Tell me more.
So this study found that single mothers who had strong social support networks, they reported lower levels of stress,
Oh, yeah?
depression, anxiety,
That makes sense.
compared to those who felt more isolated.
Yeah, because parenting is challenging enough as it is.
Right.
But when you're doing it solo, all those challenges just feel so much bigger.
It's like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders.
Exactly. And having that support system can really help to lighten the load.
And this blog post we've been talking about, it emphasizes that support can come from so many different sources.
It can.
It could be other single moms who just get it.
Yeah. They've been there. They understand the unique challenges.
Right. Or it could be friends, family.
Church community?
Yeah. And speaking of church, I've seen firsthand how powerful those faith communities can be.
Oh, me too.
In supporting single moms.
Yeah. I used to go to a church that had this awesome program.
Oh, yeah.
Where they paired single moms with older couples.
Oh, that's so nice.
It was really great. They provided mentorship, encouragement, even practical help.
Like built-in grandparents almost?
Yeah, exactly. It was such a beautiful way to create a sense of belonging and support.
I love that. And I'm also a big fan of single-parent support groups.
Oh, yeah, those can be great too.
They provide that safe space for moms to just connect with each other.
To share their struggles, offer advice, encourage each other.
It's so important to have that outlet where you can be honest and open without feeling judged.
Absolutely. Those shared experiences create a powerful sense of community.
And, I think it's also important to remember that single moms are the only ones going through this.
Oh, right. Their children are on this journey too.
Exactly. They have their own unique needs and perspectives.
And just like their moms, those kids really benefit from having a strong support system.
It's about creating a loving and supportive environment for everyone involved.
And sometimes, the most impactful support comes from the simplest gestures.
Like what?
A neighbor offering to watch the kids for an hour so mom can have a break.
Yeah, or a friend bringing over dinner when you're just too exhausted to cook.
Or even just a listening ear, someone to vent to when you're feeling overwhelmed.
Those little acts of kindness can really make a world of difference.
They can. It's a reminder that you're not alone in this.
There's a whole community out there ready to support you.
And as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I'm just so grateful for this conversation.
Me too. It's been really insightful.
We've covered so much.
The challenges of single motherhood, the power of faith,
Practical tips.
the importance of community.
And if there's one thing I want our listeners to take away from this,
Yeah.
it's this. You are not alone.
You are strong, you are capable.
And you are loved.
And remember, God is with you every step of the way.
He is. And, we always encourage our listeners to continue exploring these topics.
To delve deeper into those resources we mentioned.
And to reach out for support when you need it.
Don't be afraid to ask for help.
There's no shame in it.
There really isn't. There's a whole village out there waiting to embrace you.
So to our listeners out there,
Yeah.
we'll leave you with this question.
Yeah.
What's one small step you can take this week
Okay.
to cultivate more joy, peace, or connection in your life?
That's a great question.
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.
Keep shining your light, Mama.
Mama.
You've got this.